Your church is absolutely going to close. It's just a historical fact that churches live about as long as a human being. It's so easy to assume that churches are going to go on forever. They were here before we were born. They'll be here long after we're gone. It's just not true. In the book Multipliers, Todd Wilson says that 99.9% of congregations do not live past 100 years old. Look at the churches that Paul planted. None of those churches are in existence today. Are we going to do better than Paul? We have to frame this not as a failure, but as an opportunity. It's not a failure because it's just normal. It's normal for churches to close. The problem that we faced is because people don't know that that's normal, they've experienced that as an absolute failure. There's a lot of shame involved in closing a church. It's absolutely normal. We don't shame people for dying of old age. We shouldn't shame churches for dying of old age. Churches follow a bell curve life cycle where you start when you're born and you go through a tremendous period of growth and maturation. Robert Dale talks about this in his book To Dream Again. It's a fantastic book. I'll put a link in the description here for that book. And he talks about how churches begin with a dream and a vision, and they execute on that, and they grow. And then they get into their 30s and 40s, and all of a sudden they have some questions, and they've been around long enough to have some nostalgia about better days, and now they've plateaued, and they get into a midlife crisis. And if they can't reinvent, if they can't re-envision, if they can't repurpose and redirect, which most cannot, they go into a decline mode in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and beyond until they finally shut their doors, and it's completely natural. You know, we don't, again, guilt and shame people for dying of old age. We shouldn't guilt and shame congregations for closing of old age. We just need to be aware of the principle and plan accordingly. Jesus said in John chapter 12 some really stunning words. He says this in 23 to 26. The hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Very truly I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. But if it dies, it produces many seeds. Anyone who loves their life will lose it, while anyone who hates their life in this world will keep it for eternal life. Whoever serves me must follow me, and where I am, my servant also will be. My Father will honor the one who serves me. Jesus is saying he's going to his death, but through his death, much more life will be produced, that a seed's going to fall to the ground, but that in doing so, it will produce many more seeds of multiplication, of reproduction. Jesus is the model for the church. Jesus is the head of the church. We are his body. And if we follow his example, we can understand that even in death, even in closure, even in the ending of an institution or a congregation, that there is tremendous opportunity for the next generation of life to be passed on, to be blessed, to be encouraged, to be funded. And it's very important that we understand that, yes, our church will close one day. There will come a day when that piece of property that your church facility is on is owned by some business, is a Buc-ee's or a Walmart or something. It's coming. It will absolutely, inevitably happen if you are like 99.9% of churches that have ever existed. If you're in like the 1000th percentile, you might be an exception to that, but don't plan on that. Don't make that your plan. So the key is not to avoid death. The key is to adjust the conversation so that we can plan proactively and purposefully and intentionally to bless more generations. If the idea is our church will always be here, this congregation will always be here to continue to bless the generations, that's just false. It's not true. It's a myth. And so we have to plan accordingly. How can we leverage what we have for the future and be doing things now proactively to be prepared for the future? So in medical terminology and for doctors, there's this idea that if you have a patient who is ill and they have a disease, let's say they have cancer, and it's an early stage cancer, and so you have a conversation with your patient that's saying, look, there is still opportunity to get this turned around. There are treatments that we can do, it's going to have side effects, it's going to be difficult, but you still have the possibility of a long life ahead. You're still young, let's tackle this and let me give you the information that you need to make an informed decision, because if you can get through this, there can be some really good years ahead. Well, as the treatment progresses, if things don't get better and if things take a turn for the worse and the cancer spreads and things go bad, then the conversation has to change. So now the doctor has to say, okay, what is it that this patient needs to be addressing as their situation changes, As the illness moves from a health setback to something terminal, the doctor has to make a determination of when to have a conversation with the patient about tackling a new set of challenges. So now you're saying, well, if the challenge changes from how do I rid my body of cancer to how do I manage the end of life well, then a patient needs to know that. It's a very difficult conversation, but that conversation needs to be broached by the doctor in a very kind and loving way in order to do the patient right, to give them the opportunity to tackle the new challenge, which is how do I die well? Okay? This is not what we expected, it's not what we intended, but here we are. How do you die well? How do you wrap up end of life matters well? And one of the problems that we have in churches, we're not good at that conversation. And there's not the doctor to walk in and say, now it's time for that conversation. The people who are around the table, the decision-making and leadership table within the congregation, are not in a position to open up that conversation or that can of worms because it is shameful. We've shamed it, which is not correct. We need to reframe that. The minister has a paycheck on the line. It's very hard to confront that or to be the one who brings that news to the table, right? Check Thom Rainer's book, Autopsy of a Dying Church, or Autopsy of a Deceased Church, and look at his warning signs that your church has changed from trying to get through a setback or an illness to you're on your way to death. He gives warning signs for that and tells you exactly what to look for. I'll put that book description, I'll put that book link in the description of the video as well. These are two must-read books, Robert Dale's book, To Dream Again, and Autopsy of a Deceased Church. I've also done a video on the channel of that. I'll put that in the card here at the top of the screen so that you can check that out. So somebody has to bring up that conversation so that what the church is doing can be preparing for the next stages and chapters so that you can end well. There are actually things that you can do very early on that will help you end well as well. So here's a few things that churches can do to be prepared for the future. The first is just hold on to your facility loosely. So often facilities become a master. It's like all the maintenance and all the decisions that get made and what gets put where. The facility can so often drive the priorities of the church, and that really just should not be the case. The facility should be serving the mission, not the mission, the facility. So hold on to your facility loosely because one day you won't own it. One day it's going to be a Walmart. The second is look for opportunity to start new churches, to bless those who are trying to start new churches. They are out there. They are prevalent. The number is growing. My suggestion is, in a church budget of an established church, is set aside a tithe for the future. 10% of the budget going to new church plants. Maybe set up a scholarship fund to train those who are going into church planting at some of the big church planting organizations. And just set up a fund, set up an endowment, set up a scholarship for people to be able to get the training they need who may not be able to afford it. You're planting seeds for the future. This becomes the domestic mission of your church, not like an advertising budget. You know, our domestic mission money is going to yellow page ads and a website and things like this. It's like, make sure that you're intentional about spending money and putting money into efforts that are actually reaching people who need Jesus and starting new churches amongst people who need Jesus who are domestic. The third is be very intentional about training up leaders. As the church scatters and the church dies and there's grand opportunity for the multiplication of seed, as Jesus said in John 12, there's going to be a great need for deep spiritual, pastoral, biblical leaders, servant leaders. You got to start training them up early. They do not happen by accident, and it takes a very long time to develop them typically. Now, people can lead when they're young in their maturity, but it just takes time to get people to a certain point, and so you really need to start early on that. Focus on your community. God puts you in that community where your building is for a reason. Focus on the community in your neighborhood where all the members live. Call them to be praying for their neighborhood, praying for their neighbors. The next thing is to make disciples who make disciples. There are so many resources on this. Look at discipleship.org, who I do some part-time work for. There's some amazing free resources there. If you look at their free ebooks, you can spend countless numbers of hours training yourself in how to make disciples who make disciples. All the materials there, completely free, not hard to find. And if you have any questions on that, feel free to reach out to me. And last is just pray, 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 pray. I mean, when you think about death and dying, we want to pray. Like you think about a church dying, a church moving on, that transition, Pray, 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 pray. There isn't anything we can do more important than praying to God about that and asking for God's input and direction. So your church needs, by the time that you figure out that it's really on the decline and there's no turning back, you need an end-of-life plan. And it's important to make that when you're of sound mind, when things are not urgent, when the iron's not all in the fire and things are going crazy and everybody's really upset. You need to set that in motion early, because there is an inevitability that your congregation is going to close the doors. So make an end-of-life plan. Very important. If you're a 501c3, your resources have to go to a 501c3. You can't just split it up and just share it with all the members. You can't do that. So have a vision for the kind of nonprofits that you want to support, the kind of efforts and mission that you want to support, and make sure there's a domestic component within your community or your state or surrounding region of those who are proactively planting churches but don't have the resources to get started. There's a growing number of people who want to do that but don't have the resources to get started. Allow the death of your church to be the birth of the next generation. You will be so happy that you did that. You will be so glad that you planned for that. These things don't happen by accident. They require courage. They require commitment. They require people of great integrity. These are hard conversations. They're not easy conversations. And that's why I'm encouraging you to have the conversation before you know you need to have the conversation. If you're like, well, I don't know if we're quite there yet, you're probably already there. It's probably time to have the conversation. So I would encourage you to do that. And again, I always appreciate you watching these videos. Watch another one or two of these. There's a couple hundred on the channel. And if you haven't subscribed, now's the time to do it. So I hope you have a great day, and God bless you.